Hi, this is Eric Martin, Report Game Geek. I'm here with Andreas Price from Zuck Vlog, looking at Mangrovia, which is like your big sort of family gamer title from Alef Svensson.
It's a gamer's game, but it is light enough that if you have a family that really enjoys gaming, they very much might enjoy this. Maybe it's the next step for them towards a little heavier games. So, yeah.
Okay. So maybe you can describe this game from Alef Svensson. 2 to 5 players. It plays, I believe, an hour-ish.
Yeah, rather a little more. If you want to play it within 60 minutes, you really have to know what you're doing.
Okay.
Prepare for 75, 90 minutes, especially if you play it for the first time.
With the full boat of fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So what's the setting here? There's a lot of bits, a lot of different parts going on. Yes.
Setting would be a mangrove forest. The old chieftain will not be able to execute his functions that much longer.
Okay.
And basically, the players try to prove they're worthy of the title to become the successor by gathering chief points, victory points on the board. You can do that in a number of ways, and I'm gonna go into that a little more, of course, in a moment, because I would like to skip the scoring and go straight for this part down here, that's down here. That's the heart of the game. That is what makes it unique, in my opinion. It's the archipelago, and at the beginning of each round, each player, out of the 2 to 5 players that might play it, puts down a bowl on one of the islands of their choice. Of course, there's a starting player, then you go clockwise. So, and by doing that, that player selects 2 actions, as well as the times when those actions are available to them.
Okay.
You've got your boat, which is going to circle the whole archipelago, describing one round. It's one game round. And whenever it hits a pier or a jetty that belongs to an island with a bowl on it, the player whose bowl is placed there may execute the special actions indicated by the icons on the pier. In this case, draw 2 open cards, draw 1 random card.
Okay.
When the boat reaches an island without a bowl, that's just ignored. You keep going and going and going, and down there it turns around, comes back up again. So it's a very clever way, in my opinion, to force the players into deciding on their own timing. You've got to gather the resources and have them available at the right time, and the earlier that it is your turn while the boat is going down, the later it's going to be your turn again. If you're the last player whose turn it is while the boat is going down, you're also the first player when it is going up, and vice versa. I'm going to talk about that a little later. So that is what drives the game. How do you earn your victory, your chief points? Well, you want to build huts. I've put a couple of huts on the board already. I've not marked the score appropriately. Yes. Please forgive me for that. Let's say I want to place my hut here on this square. First thing I have to check is whether or not I'm even allowed to do so. I have to look at the island over here with the 2 birds of paradise. They indicate 2 out of 4 landscapes. You've got your beachfront properties, grass, water, and mangrove forest. And only 2 of them are active at any given time. At the moment, you could build on mangrove and water squares. This is a water square, works. So the next thing I will have to be able to pay, and let's say this is one of my hand cards, is the appropriate landscape card, a water card in this case. I will also have to pay whatever is indicated at the top of the square here, would be 14 in resources. Those are cards like these. Again, they have to be hand cards. I'll have to discard them.
Right.
And this is one of those neat little tricks about the game. I have to pay exactly the amount the space asks for. It's 14. It's not 15.
Okay.
It's not 13. It's 14. It's a bit like the holy hand grenade. if you know what I am talking about. So let's presume. The Bird of Paradise tells me I'm allowed to build in this space in the first place. I am able to spend the appropriate amount of resources as well as the right kind of landscape card. Then I put down my little hut, earn 5 victory points right away. The little sun icons are victory points. And of course move my marker, 5, there we go, on the victory point track. But I very well may earn even more points later in the game. Final scoring takes place. There you look for majorities, area control if you will. You've got a couple of columns for here, and you've got a couple of rows for there, where victory points can be earned during final scoring. So this hut counts towards the orange player's hut total on this divine path. The gods look down on that particular track. So looking down there, if it were a final scoring, actually orange would take the cake, being 10 points here, because even though there's a tie between 4 players, this hut is closest to the statue, so that's still the first place, and red is the second closest, scores 5 points. Quite often you will have a clear winner, like here. The let's call him green player gets 10 victory points, 5 for the second player, which would be orange. You get how it works, I presume. Then there are 2 special spaces that are fenced in on the board. So the first one over here, it's not about majorities. You count your own huts, multiply them by huts total within the space, that's your points. At the moment you've got, if you were the yellow player, 3 times 5, 15 victory points right there. Red and green will still score, but it's only 1 times 5 total for those 2. And then down here, it's about majorities again. You can see already that these spaces are all to be built on by paying in the form of amulets. Some of the spaces up here also demand amulets rather than the regular resource cards. How you get those, a little later. But so in this square down here, the big one, it's about majorities again, and the player with the most huts gets 12 victory points. The player with the second most huts gets 6 victory points. In case of a tie, whoever built in here first, let's say this is the case, only 2 huts, orange and yellow each one, but orange built first, which you can see from the little victory point marker that's put down. So this tie is resolved in favor of orange. Now it's yellows again. How do we, then the final way to get victory points would be the amulets themselves. Any amulets that you do not spend in order to build huts during the game are worth their own weight in victory points. They've got numbers on them, and well, whatever's left is victory points. You get those, jumping back to the archipelago, when it's your turn to collect amulets. So this black bag is the amulet bag, so that's the icon for collecting amulets. Orange, as the handy dandy table down here can also show you, has 0 huts on these amulet spaces over here, with the stone circles around them. It's not that bad. There's a consolation prize, a 1 point amulet will be the reward. If a player with a couple of huts on amulet spaces is allowed to collect amulets, let's say purple back here. Here we go, 4 houses on the spaces means you get to grab 4 amulets randomly out of the bag. You don't have to show them to anybody. You select, in that case, 3, throw 1 back, which would usually be the smallest one, the 2. But keep in mind, I mean, you have to pay the fitting amount of resources / amulets. So you might need a 2 in order to be able to build in the space that you want to build in. And the rest are yours to keep. Now, oh yeah, the archipelago. What's going on here? I mean, a couple of the things I already explained. Draw cards, open or random ones. There are 4 resource cards, 3 landscape cards, which are open in the beginning of each round. You refill them. You don't put away the old ones. So if something is undesirable, for example, this is here, pineapples only worth 2. It's a small resource, 2 resource points, however you want to call it. So that might be on the table for a while, but eventually somebody will probably take it. Again, you have to pay the exact fitting amount, so that helps. Collecting amulets, we covered that. More cards. So either amulet or card collection. And here we've got a hut. It's the icon that tells you that you're allowed to build a hut if, of course, the Bird of Paradise allows you to build it. If you have come again?
You have the right cost as well.
Yeah, which would be?
Which would be the right landscape card and the sum of those matching space there.
Exactly. That's how you do it. Okay. You can also build 2 single houses or huts, and you can build a double hut, which will cost you double the amount of landscape cards, double the amount of resources, gives you double the amount of victory points right away. Also, for the majorities, it's 2 huts. You may only build these at normal, regular spaces, not on amulet spaces, not over here, not over there in the special areas. Okay. Because one thing the author, Eilif Sveinsson, you mentioned him, has taken very good care of, in my opinion, is to balance all the numbers. There's a lot of numbers that work in the background of this game. Of course, the player doesn't have to keep track of anything. The game just happens to work really nicely because
he's done the work.
Right. Double huts, cover that. Oh, here one final icon. If you put your orange already is the starting player. Here we've got a starting player marker. If you put your bowl on the very first island, then you get to decide where the Birds of Paradise fly. Usually they just change positions between rounds if nobody puts down their bowl. Here you get to decide, and also you become the starting player. If nobody makes the effort to become the new starting player, the active starting player will just give the starting player marker to the next player counterclockwise, to the right. Okay. So if you're the starting player, nobody actively takes that privilege away from you, then you are the second player to go for the next round.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about it. That's basically how the game works.
Okay. So it's a lot of stuff going on. Don't think there's anything. This is just to help keep track of where you are here, just as a reminder on how to do everything. That's it. Any changes with player count? You have 2 bowls each. If you have fewer,
yes, exactly.
If you have 2 players,
two players. I think 2 and 3 players will use 2 bowls each, and also you cover the very last island with a bowl of a player color that nobody uses. Okay. So 1 less island in the archipelago, but double the bowls. So if you're 2 players, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then there are starting resources, which they balance the game a little. They're different depending on who is the first and so on and so forth player. And you can see there are little white and gray huts on some of the spaces on the table. Depending on how many players you are, you will again put down huts of a color that you don't use to invalidate those spaces, to make the board a little smaller so that you can stay within the 90 and less minutes time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much. Very concise overview on that. Thank you, Andreas.
Thank you very much.